I am here representing dozens of people that I've talked to. They couldn't be here. A lot of them are in that soccer field right now. They wish they could have been here. They could not. This was very short notice. Obviously, this particular issue wasn't on the agenda. And I want to say, you know, the timing of all of this almost seems like it was just trying to be pushed under the rug and not, you know, addressed. I mean, we're talking the day after open house on Labor Day weekend, and this email, I mean, at least a dozen people that I talked to didn't even know that this email had even gone. They had no clue. So their kids went to school today with this policy in place, and they're floored. I mean, and I talked to, like I said, dozens of people. I think I talked to 2 people that were somewhat neutral. You know, they didn't seem to care, but the overwhelming majority were certainly, I mean, the most common thing was WTF, okay? These are our children, our most precious children, and this is a huge policy change. And again, I understand it's in line with state law, okay, but there is no federal mandate. This has not gone through all the way through the courts. I do personally believe, my humble opinion, that in the end, this will not stand. I could be wrong. That's my opinion and my beliefs. Again, I think we're all pretty well educated here. I think we, you know, understand. You probably heard all of the, you know, the concerns from, you know, parents on this issue. I mean, this isn't a new thing, right? This has been, you know, years, right? Other states they're much further along than where we're at right now. But obviously, some of it, I mean, we're talking about the most precious years of our children's, you know, psychological development. And we teach our children, right, to respect their bodies, and it's their private bodies. And now they're going to be subjected to having to be in a bathroom and a locker room, undressing with boys. I know that's not politically correct to say, but you have the biology, right? You're an XX and an XY. We understand there sometimes are deformations. There's sometimes you know, there's birth defects. People are born certain ways, but we're talking about children who, if I ask my son what he would want to eat, he'll tell me Lucky Charms for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, so it's in my opinion that this should be something that maybe a child grows up, and then when they're an adult, right, they can make whatever choices they want. You guys remember being a teenager, right? You can all say we remember being a teenager. What's to stop someone who's technically not transitioning from going into the locker room and watching my daughter undress? Because as I know it, as I read that email, and it seems as if this is a blanket policy that is going to apply to the general public as well. Now, I understand the locker rooms are for students and faculty, but the bathrooms. So when I'm here for the Babcock Francoeur basketball tournament that my child's in, some guy off the street can just walk into the girls' room. That's unacceptable for me, okay? Where are the feminists in all of this? You know, we've for decades, we've gone for women's rights, and we've come so far, but now our girls are going to be marginalized. I mean, because this applies to athletics too, right? And there's a couple of court cases going on in Connecticut right now, where you have girls that are missing out on scholarships because you have transgender athletes who could not compete against men and win, and then go over against women and break records. Again, I empathize with these people and the things that they're struggling with their minds. But again, it's something that I feel there's got to be, so again, I have some questions. So the policy, so is that a fact that the general public could go into the girls' room in these schools?
Let me address the question and answer part of that. As a school board, not one of us can speak for the school board, so that's the main premise as to why it doesn't turn into a question and answer, because even though I'm the chair, I cannot speak for the entire board. So unless it's a simple question that the administration can answer, we're going to have to wait for a united answer from the board. We're happy to give answers to any questions that you have, but some of them may take time. It may take a meeting for us to to get a consensus, or a majority at least, to have a position. I can't just tell you my position.
Okay. Was it the board, because I looked for the minutes and I did not see that this was at the last meeting. So did the board vote for this? Was there a meeting, right, the school board would have to approve of any policy change?
That I can answer. There was a public meeting posted and held on
Last Tuesday.
Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. at the SAU office.
Okay. And how long had that been posted for?
The Friday before.
The Friday before, so literally 2 working days.
But it was a pressing issue. The board couldn't wait till our next meeting after the start of school. We had to lay some groundwork here, we had a request from a family recently that we had to, as a school district, address that and answer that request. It required a consultation with our district attorney as well as our school board association attorney. We took their guidance and we met and we acted on that. That's how we got to where we are today.
Okay. Because again, I'm going to have, obviously, right, this isn't the time for the Q&A, I understand that. For me, it would have seemed like maybe if this was such an urgent meeting and it was a public meeting, why wasn't an email sent out, hey, there's a school board meeting tonight? Public, come on down and discuss. Nobody knows about these meetings, right? And that's shame on us for not being diligent and following through, right? But my God, like I said, half there's people on that soccer, there's hundreds of people out there. They couldn't be in here tonight. And again, when you're talking about a 2-day window, I mean, it makes it very difficult for the public to be heard. Certainly I understand that, the law came through, but again, I feel that it's not going to stand the test, and that's my opinion. Another question, and maybe this, I'm just going to ask him anyway, and then you can tell me yes or no. So as far as the policy, is that email the entirety of the policy?
We do not currently have a policy addressing that, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Is it at our policy committee yet?
It has not been.
Okay, no, it has not been done, has not gone through our system yet.
Okay, so if it's gone through the system, then why is it already applying?
It's a practice. It's a practice or procedure at this point, not an official school board policy.
Okay, so it's actually not the official policy as of right now, and you guys are working towards crafting some sort of policy that's going to address, I'm sure, a whole host of questions that not just myself, but many other people will be asking as well. And I'm sure that next month at the school board meeting, there's going to be many more people with many more questions. Is my child going to be corrected by a teacher if they use the wrong pronoun? Because that's going to infringe upon their First Amendment right, that's compelled speech. So I have a problem with that. I have a problem with a lot of these things that I feel, again, my personal opinion, I'm not a legal scholar. I probably should have gone to law school. I enjoy law, I enjoy public speaking. That ship sailed, right? I have 3 children now. I couldn't afford to possibly do that. But it seems to me that this is a, that I understand, right? So you're saying you had a family that called. You realize, right, that we're for the 1% or less, we're going to again subjugate the 99%. Our most vulnerable girls, our daughters, our sisters, to be. I mean, again, what's going to stop Joe Blow and his buddies from going in the locker room and checking out girls, whether they think they're attractive or they think that they're disgusting, and they're going to go rag on them? Because, again, we were all teenagers. So how is that going to be, how is their privacy and protection going to be assured?
I think we should have time to.
Okay. Administration would like time to craft a response to that.
Okay. Okay. I respect all of you. I feel it sounds like you sought legal counsel. Again, I would question whether that legal counsel was sound, but I understand where you're coming from. But I feel compelled to speak on behalf of not just myself, but I mean, like I said, the overwhelming majority of parents are not comfortable with this. And again, I think that law is very open to interpretation because it also, right, it's basically the anti-discrimination law that we've had on the books for years, and they just added gender in there. Well, religion is also in there. Okay, so this is now infringing upon my religious views that this is not okay for my children to be a part of. So, again, I'm not prepared to bring litigation and go to court right now. I mean, that's not who I am, and I'm hoping that we can work through this. But I certainly feel that there are cases, that we have a case here to bring forth. So, again, I appreciate the time. I know there's other people that want to speak here today. I hope I've been rational. I hope I haven't been unhinged. I know there was a meeting, years ago, and maybe there was some, some elevated emotions, right? And that's, I feel like I am open-minded. Absolutely. I don't want to infringe upon anybody else's rights. But again, my daughter, she's in 5th grade now. So she is at the middle school. And she is going to have, for gym class. Now, when I went to gym class, and this will be my last, you only got credit if you changed. Is that still so? At the middle school, okay, so if my daughter is uncomfortable, she does not have to change, but then she's gonna have to wear her sweaty clothes for the rest of the day. Would there be an alternative safe place for her to undress? And not a single stall bathroom with pee on the floor, but an actual, like an office that is private? Would that be something that is gonna be viable, or?
Yes.
Okay. Athletics, we're talking now, you're opening up. I mean, I could go on and on, right? Obviously, I'm passionate about what I believe. I believe all of you are very passionate in what you believe, and that you are trying to do the right thing. I'm just here to state that this is not a popular opinion with your constituents and with your students and teachers and parents. This is absolutely, I'm sure there are people that are okay with this. Absolutely, I understand that. But in the overwhelming majority, I mean, people that are just straight apolitical, they are just dumbfounded. And again, their opinions, but I think that we need to really be careful and tread lightly moving forward with this, because this is a very hot button issue. So anyway, I thank you all. Have a good night.
Just a little more background before we get into the next speaker. I touched on the fact that a student in the school who has regularly and consistently been identifying as the opposite birth sex, gender. That student, previous practice had been to use a single occupancy bathroom. And then pursuant to the passage of the bathroom bill in the state of New Hampshire, the parents approached the school and asked that that student then be able to use the bathroom to which the student is identifying. We consulted our attorneys, like I said. The bill, the law reads RSA 354A. The law injects into that the gender identity, and it protects against discrimination in public facilities, and that is basically the clause. I believe it's number 17 or 19. I apologize, I don't remember. Within the RSA, but it's pretty clear as a civil right. And you're right, this is not the place to litigate that. That's in Concord. We have advice from our attorney that we need to let this child use that bathroom. So what did we do? We decided to make available and make it clear to everyone that there are single occupancy bathrooms, multiple of which in each of our schools, and Mr. Butler identified them in the email. The idea being that if anyone who was uncomfortable with this has an opportunity to use a single occupancy bathroom. That, for right now, until we come up with a better answer, that was what we decided to do as a school board. So I hope that sheds a little light on the background of it. We're not, there's a lot more to go on this, but we have to craft our policy and get it finished and make further plans as a united board. So who else would like to address the gentleman in the green shirt? Again, please identify yourself with name and address for the record.
My name is Angelo Ferrugia. I live on Wild Acres. First off, I don't envy you guys at all in any way, shape, or form. I know you guys aren't the only ones who are trying to do what's right, trying to decipher something. And to my problem, any kid discriminated against for anything, you know, it's unacceptable. It's nothing that should happen, it's something that I would track for years. But the big thing is a couple things. First off, when I look at this, the biggest thing that I heard that threw up a red flag for me was you got a call from a parent on a Friday, had a meeting on a Monday, and then something was basically passed. What makes that, you know, and I'm not asking you guys, but, you know, just posting it out there. What makes that one parent, that one family more valuable than all of the other families? That their opinion or their perceived right is that important that it's rushed to, none of us are have any type of input on. And you guys trying to do your best, obviously, you know, crafted something. But really, there's so many moving parts to this, and there's so many things that we could all sit here and ask 10 questions and you're not going to have the answers to. And that's normal because you're trying to get it done. But really, it shouldn't be in effect until all those things are worked out and you can fine-tune it out. You know, when I sit there and I look at it, like I said, I don't have anything against any children, any race, anything. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, we all accept and we preach tolerance and so forth, but you do draw a line. So when you look at these anti-discrimination bills, you know, there's things such as age, sex, religion, race, disability. You know, all those things are included within that. This bill is so very loosely and vaguely written that it's supposed to leave the common sense to interpret. And I feel like we're just totally passing that by right now because it contradicts so many other things, you know, to what avail. So with that being said, that the sex that someone identifies as, well, my child's a female. I have 2 females. This is discrimination towards them. They don't want to go in the bathroom. You know, we have to open our minds. We can't just open it one way to meet one agenda and one cause.
Sure.
You know, you take a look at it and you look at the fact that, okay, disability. Children with disabilities, maybe, you know, they're students in wheelchairs and so forth. Are we going to take this bill and go to the extreme and remove all monkey bars and everything that a disabled child can't do so that they don't feel left out? So that they don't feel discriminated against? No, we're not going to do that because we have common sense. We're going to aid them and we're going to provide for them the best way we can to knock into their education. With that said, this is to do with education. There's nothing in there that going to use a single-user bathroom is limiting the education or discriminating against education. That's just, they're getting the same educational value and the same learning environment and everything else. Now, also too, when I read the email, and I'll be honest, I'm going to be outspoken, and I posted flat out on Facebook. I said, hey, here's the deal. I said, what's everyone's thoughts on, you know, Title IX? Good, bad, please, no hatred. I got 2 likes, no comments. I had over 50 PMs of people that had plenty of concerns, but said they didn't want to come to the school board. They didn't want to post it on the public board because they don't want to be seen as they're someone that hates, which is, we're fearing people into keeping their mouth shut. We're fearing people into change that really shouldn't happen. It's sad to me. It really is, because there's a lot more people with a lot of input on this that are too afraid to stand up. They're too afraid to stand up in a public forum. And essentially, they're being discriminated against. So we can't create an inclusivity. We can't honor one person's alleged rights at the cost of another person's rights. That's something that's very prevalent, you know, it's very well said. And that's what we're doing here. We're taking away my child's rights. And I'll give you an idea, my oldest daughter, you know, she has lots of anxieties too. Kids have anxieties about everything. Kids, you know, whether it's, sometimes it's, oh my God, my shoes, I want my shoes. You know, it's this, it's that. It could be minuscule to us, but it's mountainous to them. She has a, for whatever reason, fear, phobia of using the public restroom. Now, she will literally not go to school, not go to bathroom in school a bit sometimes because she has that phobia of other people. Is that something that we work on? Yes, it is. But now we're going to say, there's a little boy in the bathroom. She's not going to set foot in the bathroom. Now, also too, within that email, it said that there are single-user bathrooms. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 4 single-user bathrooms within the elementary school?
There's 5, so,
5.
yeah, and then there are 7 additional ones in classrooms.
So there are 5 that aren't in the classroom.
Correct.
Okay. So the other thing that a lot of parents said to me last night were, they're flat out instructing the kids to use single-use. So the wait times for these single-use bathrooms are going to be long. The ones within the classrooms, there's no privacy in there. So those kids are sacrificing their privacy. Now, we're aiming to include somebody. It's really, they're just ostracizing further. Like, so it's going to become like a dead zone that nobody's going to use the bathroom except for one person. So essentially, what's going to happen there? That's not inclusion, which is what we really want. We want these kids, no matter who it is, whatever the sexual preference, we want a kid to go to school, worry about learning, not what bathroom they use, whether they're on one side or the other. And I feel like we're actually not really using our common sense and steering actually further away from what we're all intending to do, what we're all trying to decipher. That's a very vague law. And I feel like jumping on this to the full force that we have and having something in an email like that go out that says, hey, this is our policy, when honestly, I didn't expect you guys to have all the answers to the questions today. There hasn't been enough time in the day for you guys to sit down and figure out everything out in between. But that's something that really, I feel like this whole issue should be tabled until you guys have a definitive plan, until there is an answer to every question, every in, every out. It's just too much. You can't, like I said, looking at 9, you can look at 9 and it can infringe upon 2 other things within there. So you can't serve one purpose within the bill while shooting down 2 other purposes within the bill. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I understand you guys are under severe public scrutiny. You know, I'm not here to villainize you guys. I don't envy you guys in any way. But I just wanted to let some things be heard.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brewer.
Thank you.
I'm not going to use a stopwatch or anything crazy like that, but if we could try to keep around 5 minutes per person so we can have a reasonable meeting tonight. We do have another public comment a little bit later tonight. Yes, sir.
My name is Skip Murphy. I'm with the Glen Road here in Guilford. And I do have a couple of questions. I apologize for being late by a few minutes. My first question is this public comment only directed towards this new policy, or can I ask a different kind of question first?
Ask anything you'd like.
Well, the first comment is I am so glad to see that the school board is now taking questions during public sessions. The last time I came to a school board meeting was a couple of years ago, and all I got to my questions were a bunch of stone faces, so thank you very much. I have a motto: thank them when they're right, and then spank them when they're wrong. You did say something, Chris, that I really take offense to, which is you turned to Superintendent Meitler and said, well, the administration is going to craft the policy. I'm sorry, we elected you guys to do that. So while they may have some input, the way you did phrase it is that they were going to do it rather than you. And that I find a little difficult to swallow. But
Okay,
be that
I
as
need
it
to
may.
stop you right there, because that's not what, I did not ask him to craft the policy, because that is the school board's job. I asked him to discuss a practice of how we're going to address changing in the locker rooms per the direct question of Mr. Sanborn. Now that is, how you handle the logistics inside the school building in the locker rooms is not the school board's purview, it's the administration's. We are here to write policies.
But you're in charge overall.
I am, but I'm not going to go into the locker rooms and start taking down names and numbers. It's not my job.
Well, that was a minor observation.
Thank you.
Being that I'm on the budget committee, I do have 2 financial questions to ask, along with others. And the first one has to do with a different law that was just passed by the legislature and signed into law by the government, which has to do with an unfunded mandate, which is unconstitutional under New Hampshire Constitution Article 28A, which is supposed to restrict the state from passing down a mandate that costs the local subdivisions, the towns or the cities, to pay for something that they mandate in law, which is the menstrual products being supplied in bathrooms. It's a very simple bill, 3 or 4 lines. My question is, on a financial basis, how much will that cost? And 2, will the school board now recognizing that it is an unconstitutional mandate, refuse to implement the law? Or will you fight that law? And I understand, based on what you said earlier, you're going to have to talk about it, but it is unconstitutional. And I also remind the board that with the passage of the constitutional amendment, now known as Article 8, any taxpayer can bring suit when tax monies are involved.
I can tell you right now that I was just informed that the district is implementing that practice.
Oh, goody. All right. Second one comes to this policy/practice that is under discussion already. What is the financial impact to the school district and therefore to the taxpayers here in Guilford? Because there is going to be a need for more supervision for this, both inside the bathrooms and locker rooms, if I remember back to my days back in junior and senior high, as well as externally. Has that been looked at? Has that question even been asked?
We'll take that under advisement and discuss it at a future time.
Okay. I agree with the previous speakers. I can understand one family's concern for their child. That's why we're all here. I now have a child back in the school system, even if just for part-time special ed. So this affects my family. I look at this with no disrespect meant, but I believe that this is a tyranny of the minority, where you are basically giving special privileges under the law that have just been passed, now affects lots of people. And I think I agree with Kyle in that, let me put it more in the vernacular, you pop the clutch, install the engine, in putting something in place that you have already admitted so far today that hasn't been fully thought out and not fully implemented. So I would also ask that it be tabled until you get all the bugs worked out of it. Because it sounds like you haven't looked at all of the ramifications of the law of unintended consequences in putting this into place. Kyle mentioned religion. I think there's another ticking time bomb, which Kyle briefly touched on, but I don't think he realized the true ramifications, which is the statute also says that age is one of those protected classes. Now, as I read the bill, as I have it here in front of me, there is more to the identity, the identity movement that's going on, other than just gender. There is also age. There have been several court cases already for age identity policies. So if I was to come here and say, I now identify as a 17-year-old female, I bet you under the plain exact words of this bill, you couldn't stop me from going into a girl's bathroom or the girl's locker room. And I think that you ought to look at that ramification, start looking at this bill and start saying, how can it be exploited? Will it be? I don't know. I don't know that at all. I'm not sure that you do. But I think that unless you have that process in mind, like I do as a software engineer when I'm writing code, how can somebody exploit this? You will end up with yet another question, which is, how much more money are you going to have to put into your legal GL account to cover some possibilities? And that, again, is going to have an effect on the taxpayers of Guilford. I guess I'm going to summarize it with this. This whole thing started because transgender kids felt discriminated against, felt segregated by being forced to use either single-use bathrooms or going to a special office to change, use the facilities or what have you. That was considered to be discrimination. Now you've got straight heterosexual boys and girls who are now being forced, and somebody forwarded me your email, Kurt, and as I read it, as you listed off the single-use bathrooms, I'm saying, this immediately just flipped the table upside down. Because now you're no longer segregating or discriminating against the transgenders, but you're also doing it against the straight kids by making them use, at all costs, those single-user private offices. you're in the exact same situation as you were before, and I can guarantee you, somebody's gonna sue, or a bunch of people will get together and sue. And I'll be honest, I'd be happy to manage the crowdsourcing for that, because I think that you're stuck in the horns of the dilemma, and it's gonna get solved fast. And I think it's really only gonna come down to a lawsuit on this. And I hate to put it that way, but you can't discriminate against one, then undiscriminate, but then discriminate somebody else to give that other person freedom. You're taking, the complaint was, my freedom has been taken away. You can't take freedom away from others to provide it to the first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, school board and faculty and administration and neighbors. My name is Ryan Fogg. I live on 188 Stark Street. And I have two daughters. One is in first grade and one is in third grade. And they love their school and they love their teachers. We had a discussion about this, about the bathrooms in 2017. And since then, I've had some unique opportunities with my career. There were some changes that were made at the company I was working for, and I work with buildings. I work on control systems and electrical systems and mechanical systems in buildings, and I see a lot of them. The opportunity that I was given, I work for a lot of universities. I work on a lot of research facilities. I've been working a lot for a company that's, just to give you some background, a company that's owned by a woman who is developing, her company is developing, working on developing an artificial lung. And she has a facility in Quebec, Canada, in Bromont, Quebec, that I was working on to help get that facility up and running, where they're working on developing a drone to transport those lungs. And the mind is an incredible thing to what it can accomplish, and I've seen that in these facilities. And the interesting thing about this woman that owns these buildings is she was a man, and she was a man not too long ago. And it kind of opened my eyes to see how this kind of portrays in the world that our children are going into. They're going to be exposed to this. They're going to be going into transgender bathrooms. And so now what do? Well, fortunately, I know buildings, and I understand buildings, academic buildings and research buildings. And I was in a college recently, where I walked into the college, and I was trying to commission the building. Commissioning is where you make sure that the facility is working, operating the way it's supposed to. And I had to use the bathroom, and I walked into the transgender bathroom, and I thought, I'm okay if there's a woman in here. I don't really care as long as we both wash our hands. Because the way this facility was designed, there was a lot of privacy. And that's where we're at. The conversation about should we or shouldn't we do a transgender bathroom, to me, that was 2 years ago. That was 3 years ago. We have to do it now. We have to do it because these children need to have the opportunities, just like this woman does, who is saving lives. She's developing, they're doubling the amount of lungs that are available in America. That's their goal. Their goal right off the bat is we're going to double the amount of lungs to save people's lives. So our kids need to be able to accept this and need to move on with it. But now we, as parents and as school board, we need to provide the facilities for them to do that. That's why I'm here. I want to talk about the facilities. So the problem is there are very little laws or codes, because everything I do is based off of either an engineer's document, a submittal that specifies how this is going to be built, an architect's drawing how this is going to be built, and we don't have that for this situation that we're running up against. And that's why it gets so emotional and challenging for us. And so what I've done is I've kind of put together some of what I've seen, and I would like to provide some of the documents that I've got to the school board, because the first one I went to was OSHA, because OSHA's everywhere. And they have a best practices policy for transgender workers and how to design those facilities. And they're pretty vague, and this document was back in 2015. So I'm already looking at this like that's not very relevant anymore, but it is a good starting point. So I'd like to provide that to you. It says that the best policies provide additional options which employees may choose but are not required to use. They include single occupancy, gender-neutral, unisex facilities, and use of multi-occupant, gender-neutral restroom facilities with lockable single-occupant stalls. Okay, so when I walk into a gender-neutral bathroom, I walk into a room, and I'm walking into a room that is open. It's very open to the corridor outside of me, and there are a line of sinks and mirrors, just like a bathroom, but just a little bit more open. Why is it more open? Because it doesn't need to be closed off from the hallway, because each of the toilets are in a separate room. They're in a separate stall, and there are designs in here, and I'll get into that in a minute. But each of those rooms have a lockable door, and it says occupied or vacant on it. You know, as you walk into that washroom, really, a line of sinks and mirrors and a countertops for whatever anyone needs, you know that you feel safe. And I didn't feel like I was in a spot where, being a guy, I'm looking at it from the other perspective. Am I going to be accused of something? And I didn't feel like I was in a situation that could happen because the way the facility was designed. So that was kind of enlightening for me, and I was appreciative of the work done by those architects to create that facility in such a way that allowed everybody, whether it's the one person or all the other people or just all of us, the privacy that we need and our children need to be able to move forward and not even have to have a discussion about it. Okay, so with that, these designs have been implemented, and I would like to then make reference to the American Institute of Architects. They had 2018, this is just last year, so now we're getting much more recent than our past discussions or the OSHA document. And they had an innovation award that was given to a bunch of architects at a small firm who did a study called STALLED. STALLED, spelled S-T-A-L-L-E-D, there you go, there's the pun. It takes as its point of departure national debate surrounding transgender access to public restrooms to address the design consequences of an urgent social justice issue. The need to create safe, sustainable, and inclusive public restrooms for everyone, irrespective of age, gender, religion, and disability. What was most impressive, the jury said that what was most impressive was their focus on complex cultural issues and how architecture can solve them. So this is kind of the overview of that award. There's a whole website for it, and I would encourage you to check out that website. I found it had a lot of great, but yet very boring. I mean, I love talking about control systems. I always end up coming here to talk about bathrooms. I hope someday we can talk about control systems or energy management issues that we can address and save money on. But that's okay. We're going to get through this. And then I also have another article that was a really good take on that. They referenced they referenced that award, and they also have a few designs in here, a few layouts for bathrooms and everything that are available. Yes, sir.
I assume the layout of those single occupant bathrooms are floor to ceiling, correct? They're not your traditional metal stalls with gaps at the bottom and the top, correct?
Incorrect. The ones that I've been in are framed like a closet almost, where it's got, but it's a bathroom, and it even referenced having a window, a peephole from the inside out. So if the occupant is inside the toilet room, which has walls on all four sides and a door, there's a peephole so they can even see out to add an increased level of security or safety, so they can look out and see who's outside of the stall. It seemed like another, it's too bad that we might need that, but I could see how that could help somebody feel safer. And I believe that's included in here in one of these studies.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And yeah, so now my concern is how long it takes to implement this. And for the members in attendance of the audience from the Budget Committee, this is very important to me. I don't know if we're going to get away from being able to have a transgender or gender-neutral bathrooms I'm going to call it gender neutral because that's really what it should be. Doesn't matter who uses it. It's irregardless as long as we wash our hands. But we got to get through this somehow. I urge the budget committees and the school boards to take a look at this, to work together and find a way to make this implemented into our school system as quickly as possible. Is it free? No, it's not free. It's not even cheap. It's not going to be cheap. I thought one school system did all of their schools and it cost them $500,000. So it's $500,000. How much is that lawsuit going to cost? How much is that child safety going to cost? To me, this needs to be very pressing and very urgent to get into the works right away. It's going to be tough to get it in there right away. You know, it's hard to get contractors in. I know what the construction world is like. I know what building's like right now. But we got to get on this right away. And I would really urge you guys to take a look at this, please, quickly, and come up with a plan. Get somebody together to start drawing up designs and get a layout out there. There's a lot of good people. If you need references, I'd be happy to give you some. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fogg.
Thank you.
Thank you for the literature.
Would you like it?
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Any further public comment?
Hi.
Anyone else besides Mr. Murphy? I'll get back to you.
Not a problem.
My name's John Sanborn, live in Haywagon Road, in Guilford. I'm Kyle's dad. You probably all picked that up real quick. I agree with what my son said and what the following gentleman said, so I'm not going to go into that. I came with a lot of questions, but I guess this isn't the time for that. But I would like to know when we could address questions. I disagree with the last gentleman and what he said about the only thing that he's concerned about is our washing our hands. I'm concerned about the psychological effects on the children. The ones that are gender neutral, if you will, as well as the others. And is that something that the board is going to look into? You know, you may be having counseling forever with dozens and dozens of children because of this. I don't think that you can just blanketly say, well, my kid's going to go into a gender neutral bathroom or go into one with men and women in there. My children won't. No, I have grandchildren at this point, but I wouldn't allow that. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's natural. And if you look at nature, the issue that is before us is very contra to nature. And please don't label me as a bigot. And I don't know who this individual was that the parents call, but I would love to scoop them up and bring them into a loving place that could teach them and show them really the truth about a man and a woman, because I think that they're being brainwashed. They may have feelings, but my goodness, my kids had feelings too, but as some of them said before me, we raised them. You know, we taught them right from wrong. We taught them how to love other people. We taught them how to be kind. And I just think that the psychological ramifications of this, and again, this was such a radical change. I've lived in Guilford for 40 years. And I can honestly say this is only the second school board meeting I've come to, and shame on me. But you've got my attention now, and I'll probably be at many more going into the future. So anyway, going forward, I would like the opportunity to ask questions that you could answer, because I understand from your first comments you said you can't answer questions, you know, specifics. I have specific questions, and I'd like them addressed at some point.
Could you please submit them to the SAU, to Mr. Beitler, please?
Okay.
You can do that via email or write him a letter or call him,
I'd be
whatever
happy
you'd
to.
like to do.
Now, you meet once a month, I believe?
That's correct.
And so
Usually the first Monday of the month.
So we can take up next month, and if I submit my questions, will we have some answers in a month, or?
I think you can get some answers.
You can get some
before the
answers.
meeting.
Because, as some of the others alluded, this is not it's not going to go away. There's a lot of people intimidated to even come, and I thank you guys. You know, I don't envy you either. You're up against a hard situation, but I I think that what some of the others have said, that you're looking at the rights of one, and now you're changing it for all the others. And so what is that doing? How is that justice for that? And I understand that's probably a legal situation. I should have been in Concord voicing my opinion then, but like I said, you've got my attention, and I'm not going to go away, and I hope that you can come up with some answers, and I hope we can come to an agreement on going forward, because my kids and my grandkids love Guilford, and we've been here a long time. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Any other first-time speakers? Okay, Mr. Murphy, couple minutes?
Sure.
Please, thank you.
The gentleman involved with facilities was very good about describing facilities and setting up different structures if a basic premise is assumed, which is that everybody is going to go along with this. And what you're hearing tonight is that not everybody wants to go along with this. In fact, a number of us have severe problems with this. So what was not discussed in talking about OSHA and codes and everything else was morality. I mean, we as engineers, either physical or software engineer on my part, we can do all kinds of things from an engineering standpoint, but it is amoral, having nothing to do with morality, with what we do. He was talking about mostly adults, and in passing talking about children. But he did bring up one phrase that immediately made me think of a couple of quotes. And when he brought up social justice, the former US Senator from New York, Hillary Clinton, said, "There is no such thing as other people's children." Think about that phrase. That has been discussed, and other people have said it in various ways. That is very troublesome. And I think that this policy has a lot to do with that. But then something that really concerns me when people bring up what is social justice, which is really nothing more than we're taking some freedom away from some people to give it to others. I have this quote from Hillary Clinton. "Laws have to be backed up with resources and political will, and deep-seated cultural codes, religious beliefs, and structural biases have to be changed." I see this policy as being exactly that, and being done in too fast of a fashion, basically being put into double overdrive and putting it into the school systems. I understand there is a law that must be satisfied to a point. What I don't see is that the timing had to be immediate or pressing, especially when it was one child out of the 1,000 plus that are here in Guilford. I think more time, more study should have been put into it. But I disagree with the former gentleman that you just have to rearrange the furniture in the walls and everybody will be fine with it. We're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Yes, Mr. Fogg. 2 minutes, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify my comments that I feel as a facility we're not ready. I feel as a school board, our facilities are not capable of providing the security needed for all of our children currently. And that was my reasoning for providing that. My comments on the policy, I'm not going to provide any. I've provided them in 2017, and I don't need to provide them again. But I feel that to create safety for everybody, the American Institute of Architects organization awarded that award to a very well done, to a very thorough project that created an environment that made it safe for everybody, regardless of any policy used. So my comments are not about policy. My comments are not about the policy of who's using the bathroom. My comments are about everybody using the bathroom. And when I say long as you wash your hands. What I'm saying is, with the appropriate facilities, in my experience, and from the buildings that I have seen and the facilities that I've worked on, they create an environment where that needs to be the only focus or the only concern. They don't need to worry because of the way that the building was laid out. Now, in the past, I have been an opponent of the policy, but like I said, I don't have a comment on the policy at this time. I'm just looking at the facility and how the policy gets implemented for the safety of everybody, whether it's the boy who could be accused of something, the girl who could be harmed, or anybody else in between. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get 30 seconds?
Yes, of course.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. Just to kind of take it a step further, what he's saying, so, okay, facilities-wise, sure, maybe there is a solution, but what about athletics, right? My daughter is now marginalized because she's competing against biological males. So that is a whole nother component to this that really we need to take a hard look at and see, again, this country has, for the last, 50, 60 years, I mean, women's rights have been increased exponentially to where, right, we're all equal, right? We have equal rights. But this is now gonna just take that way back to where now the girls are gonna be missing out on scholarships or just basically being able to have, right, being on a girls' team and enjoying that and having that being a part of their high school experience. Because I can see a lot of parents now saying, well, you're not gonna go out anyway. And I think that these girls are gonna be missing out on a whole host of opportunities.
Thank you. Mrs. Brilliant.
Just real quick, real brief. The biggest thing I think we're all missing is we can sit here and try to logistically think of some, engineering plan to make this right, wrong, whatever. I'll tell you what, in my business, I work with engineers every single day. Very smart people. Some of my own very good friends are engineers. They can tell me how something can be done. It doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that it's going to pass the test. It doesn't mean that it's going to work. You can do it, but that doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, that's end of day discussion. The biggest thing that I think we're all here for today is the kids. Kids are there to learn. We need to keep our kids' innocence. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we keep on all missing, I think, with this. We're all worried about laws and the minority and the majority, this and that. I mean, logistically speaking, we can sit here and talk legally and say, we're worried about the lawsuit from one family, two families, three families. But logistically and budget-wise, those lawsuits will pale in comparison to the hundreds of families that would sue. So, but we're not here to talk dollars and cents. But if that's, obviously, I know, a motivating factor when you're talking overall for the school district, we're here to just keep their innocence. Like, what happened to parents get to talk about the birds and the bees, when their kid's 10 to 12, 13 years old. I don't want my kid to worry about using the bathroom or be uncomfortable. I don't want the other kid to be uncomfortable. We shouldn't even be having this discussion. It's just crazy to me right now. And that's all I can say. I think we all just need to not worry about facilities, not worry about budgets, worry about this and that. I mean, let's bring it back, worry about the kids, keeping their innocence. That's, I think, the biggest thing that in today's litigation world and right, wrong, and the cause of the day, at the end of the day, those kids are still kids. And we all need to keep that in mind. I think, like I said before, we need to really iron this out, have the details factored for the long term. This is a slippery slope with long-lasting repercussions. What we do today will be felt for those kids through their whole school lives. It will be impacting on them. It doesn't matter what the percentage is, if it is 0.003, if it is 0.7, if it's 99%. We got to find a middle ground for everybody so that nobody feels excluded, discriminated against. And I think that's what we should be focusing on, not this person feels excluded, that person feels excluded. Do they all have the learning environment? Do they all have the ability and the opportunity to learn? Yes. And I don't think a bathroom has anything to do with that. If you have the ability to use a bathroom, it should not infringe upon the others. This should not be a huge discussion. We should be sitting here talking about funding and different things to better our school, better our community. things like, you know, enriching our kids' lives, like as far as like the Sugar Shack and different things like that. It just blows my mind the resources that are going into this. Because once again, one family over the over 1,000. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close public comment at this time.
Excuse me, I'll be super brief. May I? Please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Please,
I have
name-
children
David?
to tuck in. So, I'm Jade Wood. I live on Ridgewood Avenue. Since Senate Bill 263 does not become effective until 9/17, I respectfully ask the board to motion to defer implementation of SB 263 to rethink interpretation as applicable to at least the elementary school. And that's all I have to say. Please consider it a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Again, we have another public comment later in the evening, if you have the patience to withstand a school board meeting. Superintendent's report, please.
Under student learning, just talking about a little bit about the learning that our teachers have done this summer, particularly curriculum work. We've done some work on performance assessments here in the school district. But over 20 of our teachers involved in that training. We had teachers involved in math training this summer. This past the Monday, August 26th, we had, I would say, just about the entire elementary school packed into the library to do training on Fontes and Pinnell, which is literacy training for our classroom teachers at the elementary school. And then in August also, Paul Mercier and I met. Paul Mercier is the Gilmington principal. She and I met with the high school math team as well as 7th and 8th grade math from Gilmington and 7th and 8th grade math from Guilford. And we continued the discussion about transitions into the high school, assessments that they're using in the Algebra 1 curriculum, and then as well as curriculum, particularly the Algebra 1 curriculum. We had the opening day, we had a presenter from the State Department talking about Choose Love, and we had some very positive comments about the presentation and about Choose Love. We had 2 great days with staff last week, and they were ready to go today and hit the ground running this morning when children arrived. Families and communities, the Old Home Day Parade, the staff participated in, some of the staff participated in the Old Home Day Parade, and they were awarded with first place this year, and with not only the ribbon, but they get a $50 prize, which went on, they donated that to Guilford Got Lunch. On Thursday, staff meetings happened in all 3 buildings. I was able to meet or attend some of each of the meetings in the different schools, and each of the principals was talking about making connections and building relationships with our children, our students in the schools. So it was really great to see kind of a similar or the same message at the 3 schools. And again, the feedback I've received from staff, certainly, having students start after Labor Day just seems like a more relaxed start to the school year, and pretty positive comments about starting after Labor Day from the staff. Under resource management, I've continued to review the staff survey results given in June. I did mention this on Wednesday with the staff. 97% of our staff agree or strongly agree they have the tools and materials they need to do their job. 96% agreed or strongly agreed that they are respected by their coworkers. 93% agreed or strongly agreed that they feel safe in the environment. I did mention this at the beginning on Wednesday, and obviously there's some areas that we need to continue to improve as well, and I mentioned communication. We need to continue to improve on communication, and according to the survey, we needed to continue to look at some of the professional development offerings that we have. I believe there's a couple of other items that we should continue to look at and review this school year. Certainly for myself, it was obvious that people wanted me to be in the classrooms more and interacting with students and staff more often. I also would like the staff to feel better about the SAU office. It seemed like that came across that the SAU office didn't care about staff, so I want to make sure that that does give a little more positive for sure. I did talk to staff on that Wednesday about the survey, and that we would do the survey again in the future. Under safety and facilities, our facilities look great. For the start of school, Ken Malevy, the supervisor of buildings and grounds, and the buildings and grounds crew, they've done a great job getting our buildings ready for teaching and learning. Scott will give or provide some update on some of the summer projects that we've had. And then I did have a request from a Nick Englert. Nick Englert has been allowed to do goose hunting down at the meadows, and he would like to continue with that. And just want to make sure that we're good to allow that, or continue to allow that to happen. And that's all that I had.
Can you give the backstory to the goose hunting?
Sure, absolutely. Nick Englert contacted me when I started as superintendent. Nick had been hunting geese down at the Meadows property for at least 2, maybe 3 years prior to my starting. And if you've ever been to the Meadows, the geese down there need feces, and so our students, athletes, practice at the Meadows, the football team, the little guys football team, as well as the lacrosse teams at the high school in the springtime, and lacrosse, the club lacrosse teams, and now we have soccer participating down there as well. So he had been allowed to hunt during hunting season. It was okay by Fish and Game. It was okay by the local police chief here in town. And so when I came on, I did discuss it with the school board chairs for the previous 2 years, and allowed it to happen as well. Last spring, because I believe there's 2 seasons of goose hunting. Last spring, a friend of Nick's, who had been hunting with Nick in the past, was allowed to hunt as well, and we did have some feedback from that, from that group being allowed to hunt down there. Some of the buckshot or pellet or from the shotgun had gone astray and had gone towards the condominiums down in that area, and so we did not allow the goose hunting, the second session of goose hunting. And I believe that's in the spring for Nick, and he understood, and he has come back to me and asked that he be allowed to do that this fall again. So happy to answer other questions. It's kind of the background story of the goose hunting.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Do we need to have a formal motion to handle any objections that anyone may have? Kirk asked me, I said I'd be more comfortable if the board with a majority on that, instead of me just making the decision.
Is there a, I guess, legal boundary requirement as far as like if it went towards the condominiums that the police department has near residentials? I don't know anything about hunting, so.
I'm not a hunter myself, but there is a setback that I believe you're supposed to abide by when you're hunting, yes.
And does the field meet that setback?
I believe so, from Fish and Game and from the local police department, yes.
I'm personally inclined to continue the practice. I think it's unsanitary and disgusting that the kids roll around in the feces that's down there. And it's a legal practice, so I don't have any problems with it. So. Sure.
I'll make a motion that we allow Nick Engbert to continue hunting the geese in the 2 seasons. I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
Does this practice allow only him to hunt this?
He's the only one that had contacted me, other than that friend that he had been hunting with one time, and then I allowed that person kind of to be the lead. And so it sounded like Nick was in the motion, so I would think he would be the only one that I would get the permission to.
Yeah, I definitely don't want it open.
Well, that's what I guess I was getting at.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right, any other discussion? All those in, yep.
One more thing, I'm sorry. I do believe he takes a couple of friends with him when he goes down there, so it's not just him hunting by himself, but maybe 2 or 3 people hunting.
And this practice is condoned by the Fish and Game?
The Fish and Game and the chief of police and I've had contact, and so when he's going to hunt, he lets us know. He's down there early in the morning, out of there before school starts.
Right.
He's aware of the issue that his friend had.
Yes, oh yes,
He will
absolutely.
Make sure that doesn't happen again.
I will reiterate that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. You done?
I'm done.
Okay, moving on to principal reports. As we have done in the past, we've all read these. I'd like to entertain any additions from the principals to these reports or questions from the board members to expedite that process. So starting with the elementary school, Danielle, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Any questions from the board? Thank you. Middle school, is there anything to add to your report?
Yeah, just one quick, because I wrote this before, we had a jump start on Thursday for incoming 5th graders. We did it a little bit differently. In years past, basically the kids sat there for 2 hours and got talked at. And I thought that's not a great way to welcome to middle school, sit around for 2 hours and be talked at. So they did do the important things like getting the lockers beforehand, but they also had some time with our unified arts people and playing some activities. So it was a much more fun start to the year. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one, Peter. On your enrollment where it says withdrawals, is one of the examples of withdrawal a student leaving for private school? Would that student withdraw officially, or would they just not show up first day of school?
That would show up if that were the case.
Okay, so that would be included in that number.
Right.
Thank you. Anthony, on the high school report, any additions?
I do actually. I have 3 representatives, 3 teachers here that would like to work with me on giving an overview of the FLEX program, the lead time that we've been discussing over the last probably 6 to 8 months. And the reason I'm asking them to step forward and speak on their behalf, or on behalf of the high school, is because I'm seeking to spend $5,398.75. I'm not asking for above and beyond the budget, but within the contracted services instructional equipment line. This was not a previously budgeted item back in September when we created this. And I believe 2, maybe 3 years ago, the school board has asked administrators to come forward for any new purchase that was not previously budgeted, I believe over $2,000. So that's what I'm doing. And I just wanted to give a brief overview to remind you all of the work that the staff and the students have been involved in the last 6 to 8 months. And then I would seek approval for the $5,300 to use that in lieu of other items in that line, but not to go over that line.
Okay, before we hear the presentation, can you tell us what you will not be purchasing?
Sure, yes. So we will be, one area, we will decreases, we will be charged less for the gun stock in because we're only going to run one lifeguarding section this year. It's actually happening first trimester, so that's one area we can decrease.
What's that amount?
I do not have that off the top of my head. I could do a little research during this meeting though.
Okay.
To find that correction. We removed a large amount of chemicals in the science department at the May, I want to say it was May of last year. We don't anticipate spending anywhere near that amount this year. So that'll be a cost savings of about $3,000, we hope. And then also we had a large repair to the kiln last year in the art department. We're hopefully not going to have that issue hit us again and impact us. And I believe that bill was $1,000 to $1,200 for last year. And then with the change from our director of media, he is now identifying areas that we are able to decrease with specifically the online databases. And so what he has done is he's looked at what books and what online databases have been used and not been used so that we do not have to make purchases in those areas. So we're hoping to have a cost savings in that area as well. And so that will get us to about $5,400. That's what I anticipate.
You mentioned that there was money to repair the kiln again in the budget?
So we have money that is for replacement equipment through the contracted services. Anything that is contracted, what we do is have an outside service provider come in and make those repairs. And so we have some money that we allocate for repairs. And so hopefully we will not have the kiln issue. And we'll have less breaks in the art department this year.
All right, let's hear about your program.
Sure. So I actually have Jesse Bishop, English teacher. I have Louise Jagish, the modern language teacher, specifically French, and Tom Raymond, the math teacher. Over the last several months, they've been involved with this process. They came in over the summer with a number of other teachers to go over what this program will look like, how it will affect our students, the enrichment opportunities that will hopefully come with this program down the road. But right now, we're hoping to really make learning personal through positive connections. That's our whole focus this year. And so this is going to be able to provide that academic support, enrichment, interventions, and remediation opportunities during this flex block. We've deemed it lead time, learn, excel, achieve, dream. That's our motto. And so it'll be twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday for 40 minutes, and one day a week for 20 minutes on Monday. Monday we would meet with students within our advisory program and look and see what interventions are needed for that student. So that teacher will work with 8 to 12 students that they've been assigned to identify the gaps, what they need. If there are some students that do not need those activities, they'll be able to work with other students for a couple of collaborative activities. Hopefully down the road we can have enrichment. For a number of years we've said, meet with your friends before, after school, meet with us to get extra help. And that's not always working for our families. We've found out that through surveys, through parents and students, they're quite busy. And so to say to a student and family, hey, pick your child up at 3:30 or 4, they're at work, and it's difficult for them to be able to make that commitment. So to embed this practice during the day goes along with what several New Hampshire, I should say a lot of New Hampshire schools are doing. And so with the roundtable that we hosted back in March, we had, I think, 6 or 7 different schools from around the region come and talk about how they've implemented this, what it looks like, the data to support it. And so I would ask these 3 to just talk about the energy behind it and how they see it can impact students. So, go for it.
So just, I don't know, just standard.
You're fine.
So again, I'm Tom Raymond, I teach math at the high school. Just today talking with students in my pre-calculus class, that's my one class of upper level students I have right now. They're asking, is this going to be implemented and when is this going to be implemented? Because I think that they understand the need and to have a time within the school day in which they can get extra help, where they can reassess, where they can work collaboratively with other students that they may not have been able to outside the school building. And like Anthony said, down the road, hopefully, this will lead to times where enrichment will grow organically, where both teachers and students can drive their passions to grow bigger things. And also hearing from teachers today, you know, myself, Jesse, and Louise, as well as a few other teachers have kind of driven this for, like Anthony said, 6 to 8 months. And the questions keep coming up, you know, do you think this is going to happen? When's it going to happen? Because not only do we recognize this, but the faculty at large recognizes that this is a thing that is really important and it's worked at other schools, and would be really beneficial at Guilford, I think.
Just to kind of add to that, I think Jesse Bishop, High School English. I think one of the things that people have kind of responded to that kind of speaks to some of our focus at the high school, but also district-wide, thinking about building relationships and making things personal for students, and allowing for that student voice and choice. This is a really great opportunity for them to have a little bit of a chance with some guidance to plan their own time and to work on those time management and prioritization skills, and to think about, what do I need to use my lead time for? And if this week I'm doing okay academically, then I have the opportunity to use that time productively however I see fit, or with whatever faculty member I would like to meet with that day. One of the things that it might seem like a little thing, but I think in terms of building relationships, it's a big thing. Sometimes in high school, because of the way our schedules work, we might have a student for one particular trimester and build a really great relationship and then not have that student again, ever. And sometimes we all know that students and teachers click and they just work really well together and support each other, and it's a nice relationship that kids can build off of. And this is an opportunity for them to seek that out in ways that their schedule might not allow in other ways. It also potentially has the opportunity to allow access to some of the supports that we have here at school during the school day, which is really key. The writing center, the math center, different things that are available after school. And again, sometimes that's prohibitive for kids because of access to rides and being able to be there. And we've tried to do online things to be able to accent that, but this would allow for that in-person instruction with students as well.
I can speak to this from both a educator's perspective and a parental perspective. My son is a sophomore in high school, and he does participate in several co-curricular activities, one being skiing, which at times plucks him away from the day. So this would be very advantageous for student athletes and also students with quite a degree of commitments, including work, to actually be productive and schedule this time during the school day. I like that the onus is on the student. This is teaching them autonomy. This is teaching them responsibility. They will work with their advisors to look through their schedules to ascertain where it is that their educational needs would be best fit. So to me, this would be very useful from a parental perspective, in addition to empowering students to make their choices effectively.
Thank you. So this is a discussion we've had already about this lead time. We were all supportive of it, and so are the survey results. But tell me the connection between the lead time and the software that you want to buy.
Correct, yes. So we have, as you know, we have 500 students. We need to be able to identify where every student is at a given time during that flex period. And so this program, many local schools use this. We've spoken to about 9 schools that use this. And so what they're able to do is to have the 500 students or X amount in their school on a Monday during advisory, go in and say, okay, I'd like to sign up for Jesse Bishop's extra help for English composition class. And so 10 students would sign up for that class. It's a cap of, let's say, 10. And then the other students will go and say, well, I wanted her, I can't, now I need to get some extra help and support in math class. So they manage their time to say, I'd like to sign up for Dick Dumas's class. And so there's caps. It also allows for teachers to pre-schedule students. So prior to that advisory, the teacher can go in and say, I have a couple of students that need extra support in this area. Let's say it's French. And so they can go in and pre-schedule those students saying, you have a 70, you've had a downward trend. I'd like to access and have you meet with me during that flex time, Tuesday and Thursday. And so that does place a little onus on the teacher, but we want to make sure that we're not letting any students fall through those cracks. So both students and staff members can select them, the students, for classes. And then for students that don't need those opportunities and maybe want to work with students, work with their peers up in the library, that'll be an option to sign up for. So everything is on a big grid, and they can go in and select where they'd like to be. So that way Kathy DuBois, any other staff members can identify and locate where those students are for a management aspect. And that's for the security.
So, that answers my question, because I was thinking, how are you going to coordinate this, and how are kids going to figure out, it's like 30 kids don't show up in Mrs. Bishop's classroom. So it sounds like it's needed, and I can't think off the top of my head of an easy way to do it. My problem is, having sat on the budget committee for 3 years, to change a large purchase like this mid-budget, I personally have a problem with it, because it hasn't gone through the vetting process. This came up before when we found out that some projectors were purchased that we had taken out of the budget, yet there was extra money in the budget, so they were purchased. And that's where that practice that you cited at the beginning of the meeting came from, is because the board at that time was not happy about that. Right. So this purchase, if we say, okay, do it, it has not gone through the budget process and been approved through the budget process, and that is a problem for me, and I think it needs to go through that process, and it needs to be, I mean, it's a big chunk of money, and I understand you're finding money somewhere else, but fundamentally, fiscally, and speaking for myself, I have a hard time skirting the budget process to make that purchase. So.
And I think I would echo that, and I think what came to mind for me is this program's been talked about as a parent. I've received info about it and otherwise, and I think what frustrates me is to hear about this cost after the fact, when it seems to me that perhaps it was assumed that this would pass after it's been talked about a bit. And I know that's me being presumptuous, but I guess I'm trying to understand, how was this program planned without this money sort of being accounted for?
Right, so back in September, we were not having the conversation that we're having right now, not specific to the school board, but having the lead time. This was not something that we had planned on, but because of students, staff members, our NEASC visit, which we went through in October, we identified after a year-long process that we need intervention. We've heard from parents and a lot of different stakeholders, you need to provide something during the day. So we had the on-site in late October, I believe, from NEASC. And so they concurred with what we thought. And so then we began the work to identify what that intervention block looks like. And so we told the NEASC committee, we are working on this, here's how we're addressing that, and that's in the plan that we will actually send off to the New England schools within the next couple of weeks. And so we're saying we're going to do this in some fashion and identify and allow for our students that block. However, I was talking with the teacher late last week, and he was in, he said, so your budget, I asked for all staff members to turn in their budget by Friday. So that way it gives me a week before I meet with Kirk and the other administrators. And his response was, I haven't even started beginning this school year, and you're asking me to project what I would like for the whole entire next year. I said, yes, that's the part of the budget process. That's what we have to deal with SB2. And so I get their frustrations. I think the really neat thing about this is students felt empowered to say, here's something that we want. And parents felt confident enough to bring it forward and say, yeah, this is an area of weakness, and hopefully you can identify that within your school day. I wish I could have seen this a year and a half in advance. We didn't. And so that's why I'm bringing it forward to you. There was one school that did identify they do not use software, and that was the biggest complaint. They said you need a software system. 3 other schools said they don't use enriching students. However, they have an SIS that has this built in. And the SIS that we're looking, I believe all 3 of them that we're looking at for next year, implementation next year, have this program already built in. So this is just a 1-year commitment as of right now. We're hoping and banking on the new SIS will have the capability for this.
SIS is Student Information System, and so we use it. We use a SIS system right now, Student Information System. MMS is what it's called, and I don't know what MMS stands for. It's old though, and it is no longer going to be in existence after the end of this year. And they forewarned us, and we've had a committee for about a year now, I want to say, Danielle, that Danielle and Brenda have been leading to bring in new systems to take a look at. We've had teachers at the table looking at new systems, and probably had 5 to 6 different companies come in and kind of show us what they have. And so we will, during the budget process, we will have a new system identified. Whatever system it is that we identify will have this scheduling module built into it. So this is kind of like a 1-year patch to get us to that next system, if you will. Also, and that's just background information for you all to understand about kind of what we've been looking at, thinking about for the next budget season.
Do we use Outlook in correspondence with our emails for students?
We don't. We have a
They don't have
Gmail.
like a calendar?
They do through Google,
It's
but
all
it's not
Google.
through
We're all
Outlook, not through
Google.
Microsoft.
I mean, through these various platforms in the calendar piece, why can't we create groups rather than spending $5,400 and have them getting into those groups? Because I know we have like Outlook, you can do it, I believe in Google you can do it and share your calendars and everything, and maybe that's a workaround instead of spending that type of money just for the year.
I wonder about caps, certain days in class offerings. I'm not sure. I haven't learned of a school in this state that has done it that way. Could be.
I think one of the things that we were interested in terms of what the program would allow for, because I hear what you're saying, you know, sometimes we don't have to go to the Cadillac version, right? Like if we can make it work in other ways, then maybe we should explore that. I think some of the capacities that the program has that we're looking for are the ability to set those caps, the ability for all teachers to be able to track any student at any time, so that if for some reason, you know, we need to check in on where a particular student is because we need to see them, but we you know, didn't sign up for them or they didn't sign up for us, or we want to follow up, we have the capacity to do that. It also allows us to collect some data about where students are traveling to, and what kind of frequency we're seeing for different teachers and different trends, and our hope is that that will better allow us to implement the enrichment piece of this, and really think about how best to use all of the personal resources that we have, all of the people that we have in the building, to kind of prioritize and maximize that time so that we can create the intervention needs that students might have, but also other needs, and kind of furthering that culture. And our hope is that the capacity that that program has allows us to do that in a way that potentially a lower tech option might allow us to track, but might not give us all of that data and might not have that sort of responsiveness in the moment.
I'd like to speak to the timeline if I could too. As Anthony said, there was no crystal ball when this was the budget was being presented last September. And as part of our work on the committee, we sat with representatives of other schools, and this program really only came out, we only discovered it in spring, this is correct, in my opinion. So I don't think we're trying to slide anything in there. It was just part of the discovery piece with all the research that we had done on that.
If I could, I've never been part of a process where so many different or various stakeholders want to see this program. And I think the tying everything together would be the enriching student software. 82% of parents said they would be in favor of implementing this, the flex block. Over 90% of staff strongly agreed that they want to see this happen. And our students, they were talking about it today, they are excited about this. And so the climate in this building is really behind this flex block. And so I'm excited. So I hope that you would consider that.
Again, speaking for myself, I'm excited too, Anthony.
And I don't think there's anyone at this table opposed to the flex block. And we all think and discussed it last year, that we need it, that the kids need it. And having the software makes total sense to me. The problem is that there's an integrity to the budget system that we need to respect. And I personally am not just going to say, well, the stuff that we budgeted for, I guess it wasn't that important because now we're just not going to get that. We're going to get this instead. And this didn't go through the budget process. And that, to me, I have a problem with that. It goes back to the tractor. It goes back to the projectors. And it would be hypocritical of me to sit here after making those arguments for 3 years and then say, okay, sure, let's spend $5,400 on the software. It doesn't work for me. If there's a way to do the flex block and find a system to get us through till next year when the SIS works, I'm all for it. But I'm personally not going to vote to reallocate money in the budget for it. It just, to me, that's not the way it works. It's not an emergency situation. That's when we allocate money. It's in emergency situations where student safety is at a need. But, and that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
Anthony, have you approached, because I think you saw the board's position, have you approached the PTA about whether or not there is monies that they could?
We have not.
Because I do think it's important.
Sure.
But we're up against the wall too on having to go through the budget committee. And once you go down that slope, then you're always under the magnifying glass with them. So if we could approach the PTA or see if one of the banks has a grant that is available.
Successful on that front.
I know, but it's just, I didn't know.
And again, I want to get back to, I don't doubt the integrity of the program or anything like that, but just like in the private sector, if we budget things, if something's not in our budget, unless it's sort of emergent, my boss is going to tell me to wait until next year. And I just don't, as the standing member on the budget committee, I don't feel comfortable if I were scrutinizing someone else's budget, sort of condoning this practice. So that's where I stand.
No motion?
Well, we're not approving it.
That's correct.
So I
So-
don't think so.
With no motion, that we won't be approving the funds, I'm sorry. Anything further, Anthony?
No, actually, yes, sorry. It would be, just a quick highlight, October 5th, we're planning for the homecoming football game, 7 p.m. at the Meadows. It was supposed to be a Friday and Saturday afternoon game, I believe, but it'll be flexed to, I believe, 7 p.m.
Anyone have any questions for anything else before? Thank you. BA report?
Three things I'd like to go over. First would be budget transfers. The second would be an update on the CIP that we reviewed with you back in July. And then the last one is just a quick overview of the 5 remaining building projects that we had talked about. So in your packet, you should have a document entitled Budget Transfers September 3rd, 2019. And the purpose of these budget transfers, as we do on an annual basis, is we have turnover with staff and reallocation of staff. So the purpose of doing these budget transfers is when we sit down with the budget, with your budget and then with the budget committee, if we say we have 10 teachers at the elementary school, this is the actual cost of those 10. And then if we make any proposals, you can tie it directly back to that. So that's the purpose of these transfers. And these transfers are allowed under RSA 3210, which is specifically transfers of appropriations. So I'll go through these very quickly. Stop me anytime if you have any more questions. The first one is salary supervisor maintenance. This is really just a cleanup one. When we did the budget we get as close as we could. We were off by $475. So this is just to bring it directly in line with what we have, the salary we are paying for the maintenance the supervisor of buildings and grounds, and the two maintenance people. Salary elementary teachers, you'll see that we're transferring $36,000 out of that. The majority of that money is for the third of the curriculum director that was budgeted in the 3 budgets. So you'll see that later on. So that position was eliminated, so we're taking that money out of that account. The salary special ed tutors in Asian Elementary School, we did have some turnover in staff and we did have some replacements. So some of the money that we saved with that and reallocating resources was $10,880. Typically, Mr. Kennedy will go through, and if a student may have an aide at the elementary school and it's more appropriate for that aide to follow the child to another school, that'll move it. So money being transferred with that to follow that aide where they go. We did have a long-term paraprofessional who actually was promoted to a secretary position, and we hired significantly less for that position. Salary elementary guidance, this one we budgeted for a master's 5 position for a new guidance / behavioral position. We were able to hire that person for less of a cost at master's +1, so that's the savings of $4,400. I'll say clean up the salary elementary secretary, the special director, and the salary custodians and the aides. Those are anywhere from $12 to $379, just to bring it as close as we can when we're doing the budget. Special education teachers at the middle school. We had a case here where the middle school special education teacher, I'll say retired, thank you, retired. We were able to bring in another teacher at a less of a cost, and that position was moved from the middle school to the elementary school. Special ed tutors and aides, we hired 1 less aide this year, and we also had some turnover, so there's a $45,000 savings, so we're taking money away from that account to reflect what's actually in that account. Salary clerical middle school, we had a middle school secretary that was promoted to a position in the SAU office as in accounts payable, and then the person that came behind them made less salary, $3,000 less, so we're reflecting that. The next 2 accounts, again, is a cleanup of between $379 and $569. Salary high school teachers, this is a transfer out of here of $222,000. Very quickly where that came from, we had a Spanish teaching position that we did not fill. We had the third of the curriculum director position that was not filled, and 1 English teaching position that we had a full-time position budgeted, and we brought that down to a part-time, and we've talked about that in the past. There's about $57,000 savings there. Also, a small portion of a social studies position that was not filled. The remainder of that was we had 5 positions where teachers have either resigned or retired, and we brought them in significantly less, anywhere from a savings of $14,000 to $17,000. So we had an experienced teacher who retired or left us, and less experienced one with service time came in. Salary special ed tutors and aides at the high school. We hired 2 less positions for this for the high school. As you know, Esther will say many times when she does a budget, she does it based on the students that we know at the time. We were able to hire 2 less positions here, so we were proposing transferring that out of the high school line to reflect the actual costs. Salary librarian, we had a senior librarian at the high school who oversaw both the high school and middle school retiring. We brought in somebody at a lesser rate for savings of $5,000. Again, the salary aides and assistants, we had a changeover, it was savings of about $1,100. Salary high school special ed teacher, this one predominantly is we reallocated the ESL teacher, so we reduced about a quarter of the position at the high school and brought it down to one of the other schools to reflect where that person's actually working. And then the last one that we have here is we had under salary custodians, we had one of our maintenance people be promoted to the supervisor building grounds position, and the person who came in behind them, we had a salary savings of about $1,400. So that's the money that we're taking from these accounts, and where's that money going to? On the other side, salary bookkeeping receptionist, the board did authorize an additional accounts payable position at the SAU office, which we talked about for 2 meetings. So there was an increase in that line of $16,000. Salary clerical district-wide, this is the maintenance director's, supervisor building grounds secretary position. That basically just, it used to be split between 2 positions, now that person's going to be just doing the maintenance and the facilities rentals. So it's, that person at one time was split between accounts payable and rentals. The next one is salary aides. This is where we talk about moving some of the money from the aides from the other schools, and we brought it over to the high school. The salary elementary special ed, again, we talked about the teacher that retired on the middle school, and that person was transferred to the elementary school. So this is where we're increasing the elementary school special ed budget over here. In the one you see salary tech coordinator here, and then a couple lines down you'll see that again. This individual was given a larger salary increase than the 3% that was budgeted in the other areas. The superintendent talked to you about that in the springtime. So this reflects the additional amount of salary that that person was given based on the expanding of that tech position. And then the last part, what we did was, so the money that was transferred from the accounts and brought over the side after filling the positions we just talked about, there was a balance of $379,000. So the question is, where do we put that money? So we did put that in the line that was the salary adjustment teacher track. So the purpose of that is when we go and speak to do our budget, we can say this is the money that came out of here, and we can identify exactly where it came from. When we talk with Gilmanton, we can talk about some of the savings that we're to capture based on turnover, reallocation of funds, or not filling the positions we talked about. So we're trying to keep that in one line so it could be a snapshot in time so we can see where that money went to. We can go into more detail, but I just try to capture that. And what we did try to limit, which is what the board's message has been in the past, is we're transferring from one salary account to another salary account. We're not taking money from salaries to pay for maintenance or other items that we had budgeted for. So we kept it within those salary lines.
So the purpose of netting these accounts out to the actual expense for this budget season, this budget year, is to do what? Help with planning for next year. I understand the Gilmanton part of that. We don't want their what we build them to be inflated because of positions that aren't filled. I know it nets out later on, but there's no sense in them having to raise taxes to cover something that we know we aren't going to need to build them for. Is there another reason, is it help with the budgeting process to have the account down to what it's actually?
Yeah, because in the distant past, what we had done was we basically said, okay, school board, when the superintendent presents the budget to you, and budget committee, if you look at the high school account, we budget X amount. Then we try to explain in detail, just what I did now is, we're proposing a 3% increase in this line, but we only need 1% because we didn't fill these positions, and it got we get basically accused of smoke and mirrors, that, okay, you needed to be, didn't need it. So what we've talked about with the school board and support of the budget committee is, when we come in, we want to be able to say, we needed 10 positions, this is what the cost is. Next year, we need 1 less. So if you take that 1 position that you're reducing it from, you can do the math through it. So there was some mistrust when we said we got some money left over and we really don't need it, and this is how it nets out. So this is pretty much the practice that the school board and the budget committee has asked in the past. And then the next step with this is now we're meeting periodically with the budget committee. We'll do the same thing. If you approve this tonight, we'll sit down with the budget committee and say, this is how we got to this is how we did it. So once we get to the budget process, everybody has an understanding of why the money was changed. So it expedites things.
Okay, so that all that extra salary money will sit in this account over here, salary adjustment teacher track. Now when you budget for that in the budget process for next year, we're gonna know that that's really not what we need to budget for that. It's a much smaller number. That's just like, you're basically holding it there.
Yeah, so basically, I think there's
36,000
in there now for track changes, but the balance, so there'll be 379,000 more than we budgeted, and we'll be able to say the budget committee is, because of turnover, because of a number of reasons, all that money is sitting right here. So theoretically, we don't need it next year.
Okay. Motion or further questions? Okay, motion, please.
I make a motion that we accept the budget transfers as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. I put in front of you today, and I apologize, we just got the numbers hot off the press for this is on the capital improvement plan. In the July meeting, we went over every year with the exception of the 2026, 27 year, because if you look at the bottom, what we're projecting is replacing the air conditioning units, 12 of them in this building, and then 3 in the middle school. We worked with Bond Page and Stone to get a budget number, not a bid number, it's a budget number going out. So basically, the cost to do those is $1.5 million. So why the big jump? This is basically what they gave us, but the difference, we're right off the top, a $379,000 increase is, what you have is, and Ken can come in and talk more detail, but you've got the AC units themselves, the boxes you see up on the top of the roof. So those are the units themselves. They have piping that goes back to our mechanical rooms, and that's where the coil and the Freon is kept. So the Freon that we use now is no longer allowed. So new codes come in. So when we do this, what we've got to do is replace the coils and the Freon from, I believe it's R22 to a new component. So that's right off the top of $379,000 budget amount. Then once that's done, all the piping to bring it over to the units and then the units themselves. So we worked with Bond Page, so just to come up with a budget figure that we hope is good in the next 6 years. And again, it's for budget purposes.
Why would we hire a general contractor for this and not just an HVAC company? I mean, they've got $130,000 in here just for general conditions. That's their profit. We've got $140,000 contingency, an engineering allowance of $77,000 to engineer switching out 12 air conditioning units. Just hire an HVAC company. They don't need to engineer anything.
Okay, so we could drop this amount if we feel that we have the expertise here plus the engineers, then we can do that. Okay, this came in at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So what we're up against is we talked about this in July. Once the board said this direction in July, we worked as best we could with Bond Page and Stone. We have to present this to the the capital improvement committee in September, the middle of this month. So we could take that off. Again, it's just a budget. Just a budget figure to talk about. If we feel we have the expertise here, working with, I would not recommend cutting out the engineering fee because we don't have anybody on staff who can engineer that. If we feel that Ken has the capacity to work with him to do that, we could cut off the CM fee and the general conditions. Again, it's just a budget. It's a budget figure for planning, and we want to get as close as we can. But yeah, we can do that. I mean, one of the things I will say, and it's not a negative, but one of the challenges we're going to have over the next couple of years going forward is, in the previous supervisor building grounds, we had an individual who was a owner of a construction management company who did pricing for projects. So that was actually a benefit we've had that other districts didn't have. So now the current person is very capable, but he doesn't have that type of expertise. So in some cases, we are going to have to look at other places that can help us with that. But again, if we think we can do that with it, we can. And we can change it later on, but we could take out $72,000 right off the top.
I just don't look at it as a construction project. It's not something that you're swapping out HVAC for HVAC. You're not building structure that involves electrical and plumbing, and there might be some other stuff, but that the HVAC company will sub that stuff out. I just don't understand why we need a GC to hire an HVAC to oversee them. I don't get that. I wouldn't do that as a businessman. I think that's craziness.
I mean, one of the things that these engineer will have to look at is the units that are being replaced, they will have to take a look at the structure of our buildings to see if the pads that they sit on, A, fit it, or B, can still hold it. So there is some engineering fees. We had, when we did the replacement of the elementary school, the structural engineer had to come and say, basically say, yeah, use the same boxes it used before and just replace all the guts inside it, in simple terms. We can cut that out.
Couldn't we ask mechanical engineer, because a lot of times wouldn't a mechanical engineer, mechanical contractor have their own engineer that they would work with and things like that? I just wonder, I'd just be curious to bid out to them specifically versus just cut off the costs that have been provided.
So what happens along the good old days, what used to happen is you could work with an engineering company or an architect and say, hey, we'd like to do X project. And if this passes, then we will work with you to get the contract. That no longer happens in the industry because there's been a struggle to get building projects and large projects through the voters. So the engineers and architects are saying, I can no longer do this for free. So I would say, yes, we could take out the CM fee. General conditions are basically just a lump sum for, we don't know, you may need, because there is piping coming over. But I would say we do need an engineer to come in and actually engineer to make sure that what we're putting in is appropriate. But yeah, we could take the CM fees right off.
I don't doubt that there could be engineering. I just wonder, would a mechanical contractor assume those costs in their bid?
Yeah, what we could just say, what we could say is, okay, we're going to manage the project ourselves, and we're going to hire an engineer to come in and design that and oversee the construction of that. So right off the top, we would take out the set, just as Chris is saying, and we can do it. We take off the $72,000 right off the top because we're going to manage it. So we're not going to hire a bond paving stone or a CCI to come and manage that. Yes, we can take that off.
Can't you just get a large HVAC company to come in here and look at these units and not a general contractor and say, one, give us a budget number, like you did for these guys, to replace it, and two, do you need this to be engineered, or do you have an engineer on staff that would take care of that for you?
That's what I'm trying to
And so the HVAC company that came out said, if you want to replace these units and if it's comparable with that, yes, you can do that. However, you need to re-engineer your whole system because the way your system is set up right now, it doesn't meet code. So the whole system does have to be re-engineered. If it was something where the code didn't change and all we're doing, like in 2004, that's exactly what we did. For $169,000, we said, take these boxes, take them off and put them on. And that's what they did. Now what they're coming and saying is, you may have to redesign the whole system because you can't use the Freon and the components and the coils that you used before. And again, it's a holder for planning, it's not a hard contract.
Yeah, it's just to give us a base when we get close to doing that.
And what we can do is, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, cut off the CM fee. If you want to cut back on general conditions, and in 3 years, we can come back and relook at it again. Because it's 6 years out.
It's just a really big number to look at on the CIP.
Yeah, it's too big. It's too big for 1 year. I mean, if you're going to keep a number anywhere near that, it's got to be spread over 2 years. There's no way we're going to ask for that much money in 1 year.
So we could do the units at the high school 1 year, units at the middle school the next. It's not going to be.
Yeah, we would have to somehow break it up. That's just, I mean, unless we're going to start a capital reserve fund now for 10 years out.
Well, that would be a suggestion, right? Whether how to break it up.
It's just like, we've tried so hard to keep that number fairly consistent year after year. And we thought that the locker rooms were a spike. This is twice the locker rooms almost. So, I've said my piece about this type of a budget.
But do we have the ability, this has to go before the capital improvement, do we have the ability to get those other people in? I mean, this is not a cast in stone number.
No.
My only concern with, and I agree it's a high number, but I know when we did the mechanical, electrical at the elementary school, we don't have a Tim with that experience. And we got there were a lot of unknowns.
Well, there's another component, there's another component too. We had talked about having a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing study done on the high school and middle school, similar to what we had in the elementary school. So we're hoping to come forward with a proposal for that for next year. So a component of that planning may cover this also, and that number of 1.5 could go down. I mean, this is just our first step in saying we need the budget, the capital improvement committee just wants something to plan 6 years out. So, I mean, and this is just for discussion, this is our first blush at coming tonight. The downside is we only had from July when we talked about it the last board meeting until tonight. So bond pages did the best they could with sitting with. What they did was they came up with a HVAC contractor on site. The contractor worked with them and put these numbers together. So I think if you said, hey, forget them and have a contractor come on site, they did that. The way we get around not having a contract manager is cut those amounts off. Right off the top, you can cut the 72,000, and general conditions basically is it's just a percentage of the contract that they think, okay, if we miss something, they add a percentage. For this purpose right now, you could take out $200,000 right off the top.
Are you comfortable with doing that, Chris?
Still $1 million, and I think that's good.
Yeah, well, and that's, I think,
2.2 million.
we have, if you're looking at, if I'm on the CIP, all of a sudden there's a $1.3 million item after your, this isn't.
Can we sit down and say, okay, can you break it out over a 3-year project? And I mean, that would be significantly more to do that, but can we do that?
I won't be sitting here in 10 years to have this fight with you, Scott, so I'm gonna have it now. No, I don't want to put that big a number in our CIP. I think it's bogus.
So what would you like us to do?
Let's put a smaller number in as a placeholder. Acknowledge that it has to be done, but to me, I think $1 million is plenty of money.
So if you give me a number, I'll fill it in.
So what did you want to knock off, Scott? What did you say we could?
So the contract manager fee, you could knock that off. You could knock the performance and payment bond right off. Typically, we don't put that in a CIP proposal, so we can take that off. Engineering allowances for the engineers to do just what Gretchen was saying, county could in. Contingency, that's a big amount, but demo and batch assistant, that was none of those came up with the engineers. Electrical budget, again, was with the engineers. Refrigeration is a big component because that has to be removed. And we could probably take out the interior work allowance, ceiling and paint. So we'll come back with the CIP committee and saying, okay, this is for the work to do those units and the compressor and the coils. So I think we could knock off the 130, the 35,000, the 15 and the 72. And I guess if you want to get it down to a lower number, you can probably take out the contingency and assume that their numbers are pretty good.
Do you know how many tons each of these units is?
I don't.
Scott, what does that bring us up to, or down to?
130, 35. So for instance, so that's $400,000 right there.
Brings us down to what, Scott?
So that, those items that we just talked about reduces by $400,000.
What's that number?
1.1.
So 1.1 million, if you say it's over a 2-year period, we're just cutting in half.
5.5.
Yeah.
$5,500 per year.
So say 550,000. over a 2-year, we're talking over a 2-year period, and in 3 years we'll revise the budget.
Okay, I can live with
Does
that.
that feel better?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you need a motion for this, or is that?
Yeah, because we want to come in and just say this was approved by the school board.
I'll make a motion that we approve this as amended.
I'll second it.
Discussion, just to be clear, that'll be listed as $550,000 for phase 1 of this in year 7?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just to be clear, that was the purpose of bringing it in this way, so we could have that discussion.
Okay.
Okay. And last, we had 14 summer projects that Ken Levy and his staff worked on, and we talked about 9 of them, so the 5 that we had left that we had talked about that was still open, I'll just touch on those very briefly. The track is done. Track's done. We're very happy with the work on there. So it did come in a week later, but it was really due to the rain that we had to get around. So they're ready to use that. The sprinkler system, sprinkler repairs that we had put in because of the leaks, that was completed the middle part of August, so that is now complete. We had one more section to do when we talked to you last time. The bollards, if you watch it, you can see those are installed in front of the school. The contractor still has to come and dress them up. If you look at them, you'll see some of the forms, pieces, where the forms put together, you can see it on the sign. So they're gonna come in and sand that down. And then one of the things we talked about is we may want them to put a finish coat on top of that so you don't see the stones and different things, hide up some of the imperfections in that. But those were completed actually, I believe it was this week.
Friday?
Yeah, Friday. Yeah. Intercom system at the middle school is completed. That was put in, so when you come in now and you push the button, you're in a secured entry area. Once you hit that, your face pops up on the secretary's screen, a recording of that, of who's come in, and then it's very similar to what we have operated for the school right now, so that has been completed. And then the water pressure tank was just completed this past weekend at the high school here. That was done by Guildford Well. So as we stand now, all the projects are completed, with the exception of the ball, is just to do some touch-up on that. So, Ken Levy's first year as the supervisor of buildings and grounds, he was able to pull off 14 some significant projects. One of the things I do want to talk about is we did finish all of the faucet replacements that we had to do for the lead testing. The third phase we actually did in-house, so our maintenance staff did replace those. After we did all the replacement, one faucet came back higher than it originally was, so that's been retested. Once that comes back, it should be about another week. I will then submit all the paperwork by the end of this month to get reimbursed for those projects. Last time we spoke to the state, they said that they still had a significant amount of money left, because again, it's competitive grant with that. So all the paperwork to submit for refund should go in by the end of September. That's all I have.
All right, second reading of policies.
Policy IMBA, online virtual education. This came to the school board on the 5th of August, and there was some corrections to be made. And we made those corrections, and we're back for the second reading here again.
A motion?
Move to accept IMBA.
Second.
Second, Ken. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving IMBA?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
Next policy is policy JIH, student searches in their property. This was at the school board meeting on August 5th for the first reading. We did send it off to GEA as well on the 7th of August, and now it's back here for the second reading at the school board meeting. We do not get responses from GEA unless they have something to say about policies. I know that was a conversation last time. I haven't met with the 3 presidents yet, but I will ask them to respond. I think that was the question. Please respond, whether you like it, don't like it, when I give input. So that's why we have no response from them.
This went to them 3 times. And
it has. They just don't respond.
I know. Has there been, I didn't notice any other changes. Was it all pivoting around the who's present during the search? Was that was the?
I think that was the
sticking point.
We were trying to get it in line with maybe the searching of the cars and yes, and who could do that, who was able to do the searches, and obviously that's the principal and assistant principal administration.
And it's two people.
And a school district employee.
Yeah. On both policies is how I read it.
Yeah.
All right. Motion on JIH.
I'll make a motion to accept policy JIH, student searches in their policy.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Carries 4-0.
So going along with student searches is policy JIH-R. This is the search of students as well, and this is kind of what searches we do, what are we searching for when we search. I think this is a 4 or 5 page policy. Again, this came to the school board for a first read in August, sent out to GEA, and then we're here for a second read. And again, it was given back to come in alignment, I would say.
I'll move that we accept JIH-R.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
Policy JIHB, search of student automobiles on school property. We did make some adjustments to this policy. It was at the school board for first read in August and was sent off to GEA on August 7th and now back here at the school board for second reading.
I'll make a motion to accept policy JIHB, searches of student automobiles on school property.
Second.
Discussion?
Can we just bold the title so it corresponds with everything else?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Carries 4-0.
Corresponding with that is policy JIHB-R, searches of student automobiles on school property. This is something that we do not have in our policy manual, and this is really just something for administration to use when they do do a search, kind of a report to keep track of when they do that.
Move that we accept JIHB-R.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 4-0.
Policy GBEDB, employee use of social networking websites. This was updated and part of our data governance plan as well. And first reading was at the school board meeting on August 5th, and then we did send it off to GEA on August 7th. I've gotten no input, and it's here for second reading on September 3rd.
There's an and/or in the middle of this that doesn't make sense to me. Third line, second paragraph. Photographs or other district-owned or created information on any personal social media site and/or without district permission. Is it just not supposed to be there?
It doesn't look like it should be there.
All school district employees, faculty and staff who participate in social networking websites shall not post on any school district data, documents, photographs, or other district-owned or created information on any personal social media site without district permission.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. So can I get a motion to approve as amended?
I make a motion that we approve policy GBEDB, employee use of social networking websites as amended.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 4-0.
You want to have one thing?
Yes.
In our packet, we can discuss what this is about, which is the Guilford, the exchange schedule.
I'm going to go back to you, Anthony, for a second. Can you please go over the Spanish exchange?
Sure. So we have 20 students for the exchange program arriving Thursday, and Friday afternoon we have a welcome party for our students, staff, and the 20 of them and their 2 chaperones. So that's just an itinerary of what they're going to be involved in during their stay here with host families.
They look like they're going to be having a pretty good time.
Let's hope so, yes. Yeah.
Do they spend any time in the school, or is it all the
Yeah.
social stuff?
I think there's 2 field trips, and then the rest of the activities, they'll be here, yeah. Fully immersed here at school, yeah. This is all, most of this is after school, except for Cannon Mountain, and I think they're going to Portsmouth. Strawberry Bank.
Yeah, Strawberry Bank.
Correct.
Will there be Guilford students going with them on those field trips?
Yes, there will
The
be.
whole,
Yep.
whole class, or the whole Spanish
About
class?
25, so we have 25 students going over
Oh, so the same
in
25?
April, correct.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
Satisfy your curiosity, Karen?
Yeah, it's all right, but I just wanted to hear about
No?
it.
Good. Yeah, sorry, we kind of skipped over that.
It's varied, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to join us Friday afternoon right up here, 2:30 to welcome them if you'd like.
Okay, that brings us to our second public comment section. Any members of the public like to speak again, or for the first time? Mr. Murphy?
The last time I used the word outstanding here before a school board, it was more in derision than anything else. Tonight, after listening to Chris talking about the budget item, it was like, outstanding, nicely done. That is something I think that I will speak for myself, not for the entire budget committee, but it was nice to see that an emphasis was put on the budgetary process. Good government is open and transparent. And by making sure that things go through the normal school board budget and the budget committee budget process, I think is a good step in that direction, even though if it put a damper on your project. I congratulate the school board for doing it what I consider to be the right way. And I am very happy to be able to say that. Because as Chris tossed out the tractor reference, I think just watching the vote tonight puts a lot of that to bed, and I say thank you, because that has been a big sticking point for me for years. And it's nice to see the process being open, the process being transparent, even if a perceived need is really advocated for, making sure it's going through the proper channels, the proper way. I think it really requires a well done, and I appreciate it. On that, however, there's always a however. On this new program that you wish to do, have you established baseline metrics as to what is happening now? How are you going to be establishing metrics to judge the success of this program? What is the time allotted for the experimental phase? How are you going to do a
a placebo versus experimental difference. Same process, this enhanced process, doing the analysis to see, is it an improvement, just the same, or whether it fails? Because too often I have sat on budget, we're gonna do this new program or that new program. It's like, how do you ever judge whether it's successful? And I've never received an answer. So I'm asking that you do that, because it really will depend, really should result in being able to estimate a length of efficacy for the program. Not everything lasts forever. The famous Head Start program said, well, any of the effects petered out by grades 3 or 4. So we're spending all this money nationally for really not a lot of bang in the end. I was just curious, along with Chris, how much money is normally spent or budgeted to fix the kill? I found that whole back and forth a little bit different, not knowing, I've never really seen it in the budget that I can recall. I don't have my books here. It's like, if it's that large of a number, how bad is this piece of equipment in the first place? And it goes back to, what is the breakdown of the instances and the numbers, the dollar numbers that go along with that. I'm really curious to find that out, because if you can suck up that amount of money to put into another program, and you don't need it year after year, how did that number come up with, I guess is the operative phrase. Then the other thing that I just wanted to ask is, have you folks considered the SAFE program by the SAFE Foundation, which is an early alert system usable on phones, things of that nature, in case of emergencies, including active shooters. I am friends with Jim Bender, who is the CEO of Ping4, who created this product, has now put it into a nonprofit foundation, and has offered licensing for free to every single school system here in the state of New Hampshire. And just because I'm a friend, just because I have heard of it, I have seen demos of it in action, I didn't know whether the school board had even heard about it, and if so, what was happening with it.
To answer that, we have our own program.
What's it called now? On One Call Now?
One Call Now.
Okay.
It must be a competing product.
It's a similar service where we can send text messages or alerts to students, staff, families.
Okay, is it able to pinpoint specific parts of a building while leaving another part of the building out of the loop because it's not necessary? That's how good their technology is. And I am a technologist, so it's really, really, I wouldn't say weird technology, but really advanced technology, where it only pinpoints those people who really need to know, so as to not get everybody else in the uproar, but make sure the right information is received from and sent to the people right on that spot. But if you have another solution, that's fine. By the way, SAFE is free.
We can do it by school, so I can send stuff only to high school or only to elementary or only to middle school staffing.
Okay. But, so in conclusion, I just wanted to say thank you for the budgetary thing. I mean, for me, that was music to my ears. I know maybe not so much for you, but I will tell you, I really, really appreciated it. Thank you.
Any other public comment this evening? I'm sorry?
I do. I have another comment. Since I ran away from the podium last time and didn't get your answer, I'm Jade Wood, Ridgewood Avenue. Since you admit that you're still working towards a firm policy concerning the implementation of the Senate Bill 263, and the process of establishing protocols has been premature, I respectfully implore you to consider a motion right now, before I walk away, to defer implementation of the Senate bill and to rethink your interpretation as applicable to all the schools, but primarily the elementary school. So please consider a motion. Will you? Tonight?
If I need all board members or not.
Yeah.
I would feel better if all board members were here.
I'm not hearing a motion, Jane, sorry, Ms. Wood, at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for staying.
Sure thing. It's important to us.
It's important to us too, believe me. We don't take it lightly. I need a motion for non-public, please.
I'll make a motion, we go into non-public pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small c.
Second.
Second. Thurston, yes. Honest, yes. Candy, yes.
McDonough, yes. We're now in non-public.
Croc TV.